Gang, what's going on? Welcome to the latest episode of Blue Chips. You are gonna want to stick around for this episode. It's going to be awesome. We're talking wide receivers, we're talking running backs, and I might just have a special guest. So stick around for the latest episode of Blue Chips. All right, everybody, we're talking wide receivers, we're talking running backs, but I'm not going solo today, folks. I got a very, very special guest. You recognize him from the Beyond the Beat show. He is TJ Wengert from 32BeatWriters, the head of college football and NFL draft. So, I had to get him on, talk a little wide receivers, running backs. TJ, what's going on, my friend?
Matt, man, I appreciate you having me on. I'm pumped up to talk about this really interesting class, and it's still developing now that we're into the season. But, yeah, it's a really fun group, both running backs and receivers, and I'm pumped up to get to talk about it with you today.
All right, well, you're the guest, so I'm going to let you pick. Okay. Do you want to start the running back position or the wide receiver position? Because, we could go either way.
Let's start running back. Where we could even probably start at the top. That's probably where, like, the boring side of it is. Right, like, Jeremiah Love was my RB1 entering the year. Mm-hmm. I didn't have him in blue chip category. GT was a blue chipper for me last year, top 4 player on my big board. And my kind of rule of thumb there for when it comes to big board, I weigh position value unless you're a blue chipper, right? So I make the exception for Kyle Hamilton a handful of years ago, Brock Bowers 2 years ago, and last year that, exception to the position value formula on my big board was Ashton GT. I think Love's just a half tier down below that, half step below that. And then the way this season's kind of begun, I don't see a world where that's going to change. We will see, though, but his usage in that Notre Dame offense as a Notre Dame fan has been a little puzzling, to say the least. But things started to get back on track against Purdue, so that's a welcome sign. We also got to see him flash with the pass game element. That's kind of one of the few areas I saw in his game where could Jeremiah Love gain that blue chip status? Where could he grow? Well, as a pass catcher, and some of it's they don't use him a whole lot there, but he had a nice one-handed catch this last weekend against Purdue. So if he shows a little bit more of that, we might be able to start talking about him as a blue chipper. And real quick, while we're talking Jeremiah Love, a ton of people have been talking about Jadarian Price as a riser. He was actually my RB11 entering the year. And, with some of these guys with injuries like Quentin Joyner, we could talk about, he's out for the year, so he won't factor in. Jaden Knott's barely seeing the field. Mekhi Hughes, what's going on there with Oregon? So all of a sudden, like, Jadarian Price is looking like he's going to be a top 8 running back for me, if not maybe a little bit higher. So a couple of Notre Dame, running backs there making my top 8, but they're good compliments. I think Love probably has the better long speed, but I think Jadarian Price, man, he'd be a hell of a running back for a lot of different teams across the country. I mean, really nice lateral agility, kind of a nice bowling ball type of build. He gets really nice contact balance, and I feel like he just really works well between the tackles and a good frame at 5'11", 210. So like both those Notre Dame running backs, it's going to be interesting to chart their careers moving forward, and like if that are they the same player at the next level, and just Love bring a little bit more juice, and then what's the disparity of their draft ranges? Sometimes you see, and Penn State's got another one. We can kind of transition to them where they have a great 1-2 punch. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have an idea of who's the better one or who they like more, but what's the disparity in the draft range? I'm like always curious about stuff like that. But Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, like both those guys, Penn State, Nick Singleton, Keyshawn Allen.
Oh yeah. Different
types of backs, but 2 really good backs. I'm definitely more of a Singleton guy. He's got the build 6'6", 220. He's going to run a sub 4.40. And really the only thing with him is like, I just wish he was a more creative, shifty, dynamic runner. I want to see him make more guys miss. At least that was like my major concern with him coming into the season. So, and I haven't gone back, and they haven't really played anybody yet. So there's not really been a lot of Penn State tape worth watching, LIU, God bless them. But that's not a game I'm going to learn a whole lot about Nick Singleton for. Yeah. Villanova, he gets 20 touches, 2 touchdowns, but it's Villanova for football. So we'll take that for a grain of salt. But to this point of the year, he does have 3 forced missed tackles. So that is a little bit better than, kind of the pace he was on last year. So I'm curious, and it starts this weekend against Oregon, right? Like, can you be that creative, dynamic runner on top of being built in a lab, size, speed, and, physicality type of build? So then that gets us to Keyshawn Allen. And Allen's a fun player too, 5'11", 220. He can lower the shoulder. He can bring the hammer. And he's got pretty light feet. Like for someone who's 220, he's pretty creative. He almost has more of the create I want Singleton to have. But sometimes he leans into that a little too much. And especially for a guy who is 220, you do want to just see him lower his shoulder and get through the weeds. Sometimes he gets a little too bouncy and he'll try to break it outside. I also think third down's an area for both these guys to step up. I think Allen could be a more consistent pass protector, and he's not leaned on a whole lot as a pass catcher. That's just something that I think with opportunity he could do more of. And then Singleton, I think, is a good weapon in open space, but there's not a whole lot of like deep refinement. Look at that route. Holy cow. It's more so like, let's get this crazy athlete into space. And that's kind of how it plays. So a couple of different areas where I think these guys can still get better despite being, preseason top 10 guys for me. Do you have any thoughts on those guys? Anything that kind of jumps off the page for those four?
The thing about Singleton, it's so interesting that you bring it up. He doesn't have a lot of like shimmy in his game, we'll call it. But he's pretty nimble out of the backfield when it comes to being a receiver. And they use him, they don't just check the ball down to him. They will get him some, he's not necessarily crisp with any downfield route running, but he does get the ball. He does get open, outside of, that initial running back kind of destination when it comes to the passing game.
Sure.
But it is interesting to see that he can do that, but he also doesn't have a whole lot of shake, rattle, and roll in his game. And, the missed tackles force is a better pace. You brought that up, but he's still really lacking in that category, especially when you think of the opponents. You talked about FIU, you talked about Villanova. The only other one you didn't mention was Nevada. I mean, they just haven't really played. And you would think a guy with this expertise, with this type of experience, I mean, this is his fourth year at Penn State. This is a guy who's been right around 1,000 yards from scrimmage, if not past it, every year as a Nittany Lion, and yet he has these three cupcakes. And he doesn't necessarily go crazy. The TDs are there, but TJ, I mean, I think you might be able to find some pay dirt against some of these squads if you had a nice offensive line like he does. So
I do want to just amend. It's actually, I hear you. I do want to amend one thing I said. 14 forced missed tackles so far this year. He had 44 all of last year, so we are on a good pace. But again, it's Nevada, it's FIU, it's Villanova. Let's see what it looks like against Oregon this weekend, what it looks like against Ohio State down the line, Michigan once we get there. So, and you're right, as a pass catcher, I can understand where you're coming from, where there is actually, I was looking at Katron Allen, only 3. So let me write the record here. 14 forced missed tackles for Katron Allen to Nick Singleton's 3 this year.
Right. Think
about just that, the two of those guys and the disparity there. So it's interesting when you look at Singleton, and you're right, as a pass catcher, he can run a wheel and he's faster than linebackers. So he is functionally getting open, but there's not more. It's not like the CMC stuff where it's like, put this guy in the slot and on these option routes, let him set up a slot corner. It is interesting. He is this unbelievable ball of clay from an athletic standpoint, muscle mass, everything you want there. But the shimmy's not there. And again, it goes back to the Allen thing where it's interesting. He almost has too much shimmy for his game. He wants to be a little too bouncy. And I wonder if environment is so key, right? Like we are made up of the people we surround ourselves with and then the environment that we grow up in, right? Like not only from like a young age, but for this coaching staff, I wonder if he's hearing some of that stuff around Katron Allen. Hey, he's too bouncy. He's too, he does too much. I'm just going to be 6 foot 220. I'm going to plow ahead. That's what the coaches want Katron to do. So maybe that's what I need to do. Or maybe it's just the right running back coach saying, hey, Singleton, you're a freak. Go be a freak. Maybe it just takes that empowerment, right? So those are all things I'm curious about. And that's also where, not that the Senior Bowl or the Combine or, whatever the case may be, those all-star outlets necessarily can't make or break a status. They add or they subtract. That's a space where I just want to see how he moves out in front and in open space and just how he looks in that environment. Get him away from Penn State, those expectations, the asks of that coaching staff. And I want to put my own eyes on it too. Because sometimes you watch, even if it's all 22, it doesn't always look the same. But then you see these guys up close and personal, and you're like, whoa, okay, never mind. That guy's got the juice. He's just not playing with that juice. It just takes a coaching element. So that's where I'm a little TBD on Singleton, but just from, build, speed, and power, I mean, dude's checking all the boxes from that standpoint.
And, some of the things that's really gets not exposed. Exposed seems like such a negative word, but just what gets highlighted throughout the actual draft process. We'll call it, February to the actual draft. You end up finding out some things about these players in terms of, what their actual height and weight is, or how they carry that weight, and you get a chance to see it. Like you mentioned down in Mobile, you mentioned same thing in Combine, and then what you end up finding out is the NFL scouts, they are sickos like us, but it's their job. So they are talking about Nicholas Singleton not from the 6-month window, not from the 6-week window. They're talking over the last 18 months, 2 years, 3 years.
Totally.
As long as they've had eyes on this guy.
Yeah.
And he's been in the forefront of college football. He's been a productive player since he was 18 years old coming out of high school. So this all gets banked. This all gets remembered. And then all of a sudden that's how you could sometimes be a little bit out on a player.
Yeah.
All of a sudden he gets drafted 50 picks earlier than expected. Like, why? Well, because their scouting cycle isn't these short time bursts that we typically gravitate towards. This is a process of years down to high school.
Especially if they're an area scout, right? Like, say you're a Southeast area scout. You've been watching the same dude at Florida for the last 4 years, and you've been fixated on that program plus all those other programs. But that's your area. That's your area of expertise, and that's where your focus is solely spent. So, yeah, you know these guys for long periods of time. But getting back to, like, the kind of the Mobile point, I kind of want to compare it to two different guys, not running backs. But that's kind of the beauty of, like, playing the draft lottery, right? Sometimes there's stuff that you see once you see him in person, or it's just having a conversation with the guy. And then you unlock something that maybe wasn't there on tape. Or like Terry McLaurin's the example I want to go to. In college, Scary Terry was not a contested catch fiend. He doesn't really have the build to be that. His first couple of years in Washington, he had to be. I mean, he simply had to be a guy who could win at the catch point because he had erratic quarterback play. And he was their best option. And a lot of times the best bet for that offense was, hey, chuck it 17th probably down there somewhere. And all of a sudden this sub 6 foot receiver who's pretty slightly built becomes a really solid and dependable contested catch guy. Not something you would have guessed when he came out of school. And then, kind of parlaying that future on the different side of the ball, Shamar Stewart, top 10 player on my board. He was the polarizing one last year. He has the disruption, right? He has the pressures. He's got the QB hurries, but he doesn't have it turned into sacks. The Bengals are willing to say, hey, he's a great disruptor. We can turn that into a great finisher. Other people are saying, hey, I'm rinsing my hands of that. I don't want any of that. You guys got it. That's your pick. And it's just interesting, the dichotomy there. So, like, Singleton, different position, different thing we're asking him to grow and expand upon in his game. But, like, that creativity, is it just, hey, the coaches want me to just get what I can get, read it out, full steam ahead forward? Or is it a comfort thing and it just takes the right coach to get into his head? Or, hey, maybe he just doesn't have that as a component of his game. So it's all things that will help once we get to the Senior Bowl, the Combine, see what he looks like on the field, right? If he's got stiff hips, then boom, we've got our answer. He's probably not going to be LaDainian Tomlinson with the one cuts, it's just not going to be there. But maybe it's there and we're just not seeing it yet. So it's always interesting to play this. Can he do it and we're not seeing it and he's not doing it yet? Or can he just flat out not do it? So it's always kind of fun to play these. And I love team building. I love exploring these prospects. I love the what ifs of it all. There's 1,000 endless doors we can go down with all these guys.
Team building it's the reason why I think a lot of us end up loving fantasy football. It's either one of two things. It's the love of the game of team building. It's the guys who've been doing it ever since, the Madden franchises when you're a kid. Right. And then there's the degenerate gamblers that just want the action, right? But
100%.
I'm with you. I'm a team building guy. I love it.
100%. And I'm in fantasy football, and I do think there's overlap in that world, right? Like, especially I play a lot of Dynasty. So if I was high on a guy in the NFL draft, bet your bottom dollar, Corey Krosky merits on all my Dynasty teams for a reason, like guy I liked a lot last year. And then, it's interesting. You bring up that fantasy component. It's going to be interesting to see, and landing spot will play a big part of it. Right now, Nick Singleton's my RB2. Right behind him is Jonah Coleman from Washington.
Yeah, baby. Talk to me.
I love me some Jonah Coleman, 5'9", 228. That is like, if I could just make every running back one size, that would be pretty much the exact build I would want. Low center of gravity, bowling ball build, contact balance for days. But Coleman also brings enough long speed. He's not going to necessarily break off a bunch of 80-yarders, but 50 yards to the house, we've seen him do that, at least, in the Big Ten over the last couple of years, which to me is a pretty good barometer for, guys going to be faster at the NFL level, but if you can do it in the Big Ten, and he's doing it more than like a guy like Blake Corum, same conference, didn't have insane breakaway speed. Coleman, I think, brings a little bit more of that to the table. So, I have a couple of fantasy leagues where you get a boost for a 40-plus yard run. So I do think that's a potential here when looking at Coleman at the next level. But it's going to be interesting to see better pure runner. I think give me the Coleman over Singleton right now. But just with the athletic profile that comes with Nicholas Singleton, they're both solid pass catchers, but maybe just because out in open space, man, Singleton and his speed, that's going to be a headache for teams to deal with. It just comes down to, like, do you think he learns how to become a creative runner? So it's going to be really interesting to see, like, once we get to that argument next year, who are people taking in fantasy? And again, I know landing spot is a big part of this, right? Like, if one of these teams gets drafted to, I don't know, who doesn't? If one of these guys goes to Denver somehow and they're stuck in the biggest logjam of a committee possible, then, that throws it out the window. But if both these guys go to RB needy teams, it's going to be interesting to see how people weigh the upside of Singleton versus, I think, the higher floor that comes with a Coleman, kind of the root of that argument. But Coleman's NFL ready, man. And I mean, he's got some tread off the tires, but I don't think it's like an egregious amount of workload into his career. And he's just a body build that we know works at the next level. Mm-hmm. And we've got plenty of years of tape to back that up too. So love the build, love the contact balance, enough speed to break away and make those big plays. So yeah, Jonah Coleman, he brings it, man. Also a solid blocker. This guy wants to stick his nose in there. He's just a football player, wants to help his team win. So from that standpoint too, he's a really easy box to check.
Jonah Coleman checks a lot of those, but he's tough, man. And he
yeah.
is an aggressive runner. I love watching it. The violent is the word I always use. And I know it's maybe not the nicest thing. It's not always nice to color someone violent, but when I watch him, I'm like, damn, that kid is violent. He's not afraid he doesn't shy away from the tackler.
No,
he isn't afraid to lower his shoulder. But let me ask you this about Jonah. Let's ask about just Jonah Coleman specifically.
Okay.
What do you project his 40 time? Like, what do you project? Because obviously that's going to play into the speed score. Speed score will probably be a bit overinflated because of the weight. If he does come in at 220, he doesn't have to run the 4.39 to burn up the speed scores, the burst scores. Do you have it in your model, or kind of just what your eyes tell you? Is he a mid 4.5s guy? Can he be a low 4.5s guy? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking mid 4.5s. I just looked up Blake Corum was 4.53, but he did it 2.05. Yeah.
And it was fat. People were like, I was there for that, and I remember being like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And
I wasn't expecting that.
Coleman right now is 228. I could see a world where he's probably closer to 232, 234 right now, but maybe he gets to the combine and he's right on the head, 225. Mm-hmm. And I will also say pretty light feet, which also goes well for what the long speed may look like. And again, there are runs where he pulls away from the defense, but I'm talking 40, 50-yard runs, not like the CJ2K 75, 80-yard runs. So I'd probably say somewhere in that 4.55, give, a couple of hundredths of a second or so either way. I have to honestly, that's a good, interesting. I got to try to find some like on field data. I tend to pull all that information towards the end of the process when I have a full season of, miles per hour numbers to look at, but it's going to be interesting to look at just from that too. I don't know if there's any validity to this. This would be a great experiment for me to run one day, but sometimes it feels like guys who are lighter then throw on the pads and you see their speed difference between the 40 and the on-field product a little bit more than you do when you see a guy who's 225, runs this at the combine, throws the pads on, and the speed feels a little bit close to the same. Not saying that for everyone who's 170 and all of a sudden their speed's gone. Xavier Worthy's still extremely fast on the football field. But it does feel like there's some guys who you'll lose that speed a little bit more once you add the weight, of the pads and everything like that. Coleman's not going to be that guy. Again, big, burly, violent runner for sure. Carries his mass really well, though. So, like I said, 4.55. And I think that's a good – what did Caleb Johnson run last year? 4.56, I think, off the top of my head?
He was a little bit high 4.5s.
Yeah.
Let me give you the number right now.
Real quick. I'm pretty sure he was 4.56, 4.57 at 224.
I was going to say 4.5, yeah.
I think – I thought Johnson was a little bit faster than that on tape. Like I was probably guessing more 4.54. It's 3/100th of a second. It's like not the biggest deal, but I would say Coleman's probably in that ballpark, maybe a smidge faster.
But I know to most that doesn't seem like a lot, but these kids, if you look, they look up at the jumbotron in Indy and they see 4.56 or 4.54.
100%.
They're celebrating totally different because that looks totally different.
And sometimes it is just that, right? Like the difference between a 4.41 and a 4.39 in our brains is huge. And same can be said about 4.56 to 4.54. All of a sudden you're saying 4.56. All right, so he's a high 4.5 guy. Okay, that's not the
high
best.
High 4.5, right?
And all of a sudden 4.54, you're saying, oh, he's basically a low 4.5s guy. That's pretty kind of impressive for 228. And it's just 2/100ths of a second. But it is amazing how that can shape our narrative a ton. But it's also, force equals mass times acceleration. Brother's got the mass. And every measure of acceleration that we can have and like speed makes him that much more daunting and that much more of a forceful player. So, and especially for the running back position, that you want him to be able to, show up linebackers at the hole, So
That's right. So we got Jeremiah Love, that's number 1. Nicholas Singleton, number 2. Jonah Coleman, number 3. Our lists are not that far off so far, but give me a name that's higher on your list than we'll call it the consensus. Who's the guy? Let's say we got the TJ My Guy. This is early, I get it. It's not even Halloween yet, but in the 2026 class, who's the My Guy? Who's the one that is just a little bit higher on your list than most?
I think he's got a lot of fans, so I don't necessarily want to just say he's my guy only. But I'm going to go with Damone Claiborne. And he's had some good games this year, too. So, good football player. I know he's got his fans. Running back from Wake Forest. And he ended the season as my RB6, actually. But Quentin Joyner was right ahead of him, and I had them in a bucket together. 2 guys that all-world speed, all-world type of, like, lateral movement skills. Like, these guys plant their foot, make a juke move, and it is something to behold. But Joyner got hurt right before the season started, so he's going to be more of a 2027 guy. And then the guy I actually had ahead of those 2 was Jaden Ott, and Ott has had a hard time finding the field this year for Oklahoma. So I'm not really even sure, what to do with that. If the coach doesn't think you're the best one on the field, I don't know what to do from you from a draft eval standpoint. But because of that moves Claiborne up to my RB4, averaging almost 10 yards per attempt. I mean, ridiculous. We're talking about 25 carries, 247 yards, 193 of that coming against West Carolina. I understand. It's a lot less sexy against NC State, only 3 yards per carry. But it's also, let's be honest, not a very good Wake Forest team. So he is kind of bearing the blunt of that load in a lot of ways. And it's not necessarily one-to-one. And I think he's a little bit more patient than this. But I look back to Jahmyr Gibbs and his decision to leave Georgia Tech, right? Georgia Tech. That last year he was there. They were terrible. And if they were going to win games, it was because Jahmyr Gibbs was having the day, it was his game. And he was taking over. But because of that, every run he had, he was looking to hit a home run. Then he goes to Bama, whole new world, and he gets to just read it out. And he was my RB2 that entire cycle because of that, trailing only the great Bijan Robinson. And Damone Claiborne, I don't think is quite as like, I need to win this game for my team, but I think the situation still puts him in that box. So he's someone who has unbelievable speed, unbelievable lateral quicks. And I think at the next level all this comes out of coaching. With the right coaching, put in the right environment where, hey, and someone can just get it through his head, hey, you don't have to win this week. You're going to get 15 touches this week. Let's make the most of them and just help us win this football game. I think that could take his game to a whole nother level and just playing within an offense versus I am the offense. I need to win this game this week for Wake Forest. The only downside of that is like you look at Jahmyr Gibbs and he's over 205 pounds, and that's kind of the threshold you're looking for. That's typically the mark for like, can this guy be a bell cow? Claiborne right now listed at 195. He'll probably get to the combine and all of a sudden be 205 or just a tick below it, right?
He'll be 201, and he's like, checkbox, right. Got it.
But I think we're starting to hit a turning point, and we'll see what happens with Brashard Smith. He was 195, but also Bucky Irving, 195. I think he's going to be the guy that might start to turn that the other way because he's leading that committee in Tampa Bay. And honestly, I'm kind of reluctant to call it a committee because it's mostly Bucky Irving with dashes of Rashad White and your occasional Sean Tucker sighting. But I'm hoping that starts to change the narrative. But I will say, Claiborne, you watch him, he looks like your prototypical fast, elusive back. He does look a little bit more slightly built, a little bit more like a Chris Johnson. So it may be good for him to be splitting carries, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs style anyways. But again, I'm really confident in just the natural ability, the natural athletic talent that's there. And plus like the long speed that every team's looking for that home run threat. And if you get him to play within an offense at the next level with a better situation around him, he could be a really, really fun player. So he's my RB4. And again, maybe he won't be a full-time starter for you because he's sub 205, but man, at 15 touches a game, he could have that type of, Jahmyr Gibbs type compliment, that Breece Allen type, that Devon Achane to Ollie Gordon, but we're starting to see that develop in Miami. Like that could become a really nice 1-2 punch if you get the right compliment for him. So I'm going to go Damone Claiborne from Wake Forest, my guy.
That, it's so funny. I've been so anti-small running back for so long, and I've eaten so many plates of crow these last 3 years between James Cook, Devon Achane, and now Bucky Irving. It's just every time they come in light, and I just kind of say, no, they're going to get hurt. They're just proving me wrong. So my whole outlook on these backs is completely changed.
And so that's going to come down to usage, right? Like, I mean, who knows? Knock on wood. I have Bucky Irving in my main dynasty league, so like, really hope this doesn't happen. But he could get hurt, right? Like, who knows? In a couple weeks, we may be talking about, oh, there it is. There's that 195 running back. So I think usage is going to be key. But for the most part, most teams are running a committee anyway. So especially as a rookie, at most he would be like a 50-50 guy, or like he would have a plurality and he would have 40% of the touches with two other guys getting 30 and 30 or somewhere thereabout. So I do think he's gonna have to be more of a compliment versus like, I'm Derrick Henry and this is my backfield now. So I'm with you from a standpoint there.
But even if you look through the aisles of time, there's a lot of these rookies that, they're unbelievable. But when you go back to their rookie season, and it's not even just the early part of the rookie season, it could be the whole rookie season, you realize that the better ones did come and were eased into it. And they weren't necessarily just given all the touches. I mean, even Christian McCaffrey, and the production god that he's become, had to split time with Jonathan Stewart to start.
Wow, that's a flashback. I had actually forgotten about that. That's kind of nuts.
Right. Derrick Henry was playing second fiddle to DeMarco Murray. These guys, regardless, they sometimes get put in the back burner to start their career, and they could get bigger. That's the thing we always forget. They're 195. They give them a year of NFL eating and working out, and now they're playing at 205, and they're like, oh that's shit, okay, that's the guy we were thinking about right there.
In Claiborne, he's not short either, so I could see a world where even just 8 pounds, the right 8 pounds, doesn't take away any speed. Because I mean, and also like even if he lost like 1% of his speed, this guy is still one of the fastest players in this class, and he's going to be an absolute spark plug. So if it comes at the cost of like adding 8 pounds, I still think that would be fair. I think that's a great point. I will say from the running back standpoint, this is just like a team building thing. I think has shifted from that time to now. Then I think it was a little bit more of a thought. I don't want to play rookie right away. I don't want to force them onto a big stage, and then I'm going to sign them to a second contract if they're great. I think now we're entering a point in time where you might start seeing teams be like, you know what, if we get them for 4 or 5 years, look at the Steelers and Najee Harris. Hey, we got them for 4 years, and we decided to or 5 years, and we're comfortable moving on now. I almost do wonder if the opposite starts to happen of what you're saying, and I don't think you're necessarily wrong with what you're saying, but I almost do wonder if we get to a point where it's like, you know what? I got this guy for 5 years, and I know I got those 5 years. I'm going to absolutely drive this Chevy truck into the ground, and I'm going to get all my money's worth. And then if someone wants to sign him after that, that's their penance. They can do that. Go ahead. I do wonder if we start to see a philosophical shift there, but I don't think you're wrong necessarily in what you're driving at.
No, I mean, we are seeing a changing of the way that teams build their roster construction, and then usage. I mean, there's never been a time where the breakdowns analytically, both on and off the field, are, they're at max. So we'll see how this plays out. But sometimes you just have to be okay with smaller guys taking a backseat at first, because if you want them to be good, there's something called development, people. It has to sometimes take place. So my guy in the class, someone I was very high on coming into the year, and he's been even better than I expected. Give me your couple sentence synopsis on Justice Haynes from Michigan. Yeah,
Justice Haynes, man. I'm going to have to give him another rewatch, because I've just been watching him on Saturdays and just loving what I'm seeing. And he's another one of these guys where the build is exactly what I want. He's got the physicality. He's got that contact balance. He is a burly human being to bring down. Maybe a little bit taller than what I was talking about earlier, but I think he'll be right around that 5'10" mark. Could see a world where he's 215, 220. Right now I'm looking at 210 on PFF. I think he's probably a little bit bigger than that. But you're talking about 100-plus yards in all 4 games, so that's a great boxes to check. And I know one of that's Central Michigan and one of that's New Mexico, but the other 2 are Oklahoma and Nebraska, P4 comp. And I will say he does have the advantage of a mobile quarterback in Bryce Underwood, right? Like that keeps that backside defender at bay.
And a physical line. I mean, the Michigan O-line is some of the nastiest.
And that's still the identity of that team. We want to run the rock and we want to play defense. Until next year, once they have some NIL money poured in at receiver, then I think it's gonna be Bryce Underwood's Underwood's world, and we're just gonna be living in it. But no, I like Haynes a ton, and you even saw it this last week against Nebraska. Pull away speed, so he gives you the physicality, the contact balance, the willingness to play between the tackles, but then also when there is a seam, he has the shot to take it the distance too. So, and it's just interesting to see him in a bigger workload, right? Like already 66 carries through 4 weeks. Talking about a guy who had 78 all last year at Bama and 25 the year before that. So we're seeing that's because he's splitting time with Jan Miller for a majority of last season. So it's just cool to see him be able to take on a bigger workload. I say this a lot in videos. I love seeing guys go from a smaller school to a bigger school and handle that jump in competition. Not quite that same thing, but seeing a guy go from featured part of a running back field to the guy. You're the guy. That this is your RB room. Here you go. Here's the crown. Heavy is the head that wears that crown, and he has worn it with great results so far. So love seeing him be able to handle that jump up and duty, but also, man, he looks awesome. I mean, he looks awesome. So he gives you the physicality, he gives you the long speed. I'm liking a lot of what I see from Justice Haynes. So preseason, he was RB 14 for me, but not because I didn't like what I saw. It was just more so like there's not a lot of what I've seen. It's a smaller sample size. And then I just wanted to see what it looked like in Michigan. So there's a lot of those guys where I was just kind of in wait and see holding patterns.
Oh, yeah.
And he was one of those guys. But, dude, he looks fantastic. So I have a hard time thinking he's not going to be a top 10 RB for me by the time we get to April. Like that would, to me, that to me was signal I found a bunch of great, under the radar guys in, February and March, and, they're now stealing the show. So that would mean we have another great running back class in our hands as well. So.
And brother, listen, you're in a safe place. I am not one of those vultures that get, oh, you had him at running back 14. No, I understand the process. 14 can go to 1
evolving. Yeah.
Like that. If you're not evolving, you're not doing it right. So you're in a safe place. 14 can become top 10, can become top 5, and I ain't gonna give you no flack.
And that's where like summer scouting can be so difficult, because sometimes you'll see a guy transfer. Like I think of Alex from Hail Mary Sports. Preseason had Mansour Delanus as CB1. What a shot, what a flag to plant there, because that's looking like it's going to be the case depending on Jermon McCoy by the time he comes back. But it's because he said, you know what? He is exactly what LSU, like everything LSU corners are and what they teach, he has and excels at. That guy's going to thrive there. He was spot on. And sometimes you want to project that forward, but sometimes you can't. And that was kind of me with Justice Haynes, where it's like, you know what? I think he's going to be great. That's definitely still their identity. They're going to feature him a ton. So he'll probably be a top 10 guy, but it's just hard to know that without fully seeing it. So, I give credit to people who want to plant the flag and be early, but I'd rather be right and take my time getting there versus, early and potentially wrong. So
the great separator of evaluators, my friend. The great separator. The ones who want to be first and the ones who want to be right, because it's better to be right than be first. But it is cool.
It's great to be both. It's great to be both.
It's going to be cool. And it happens. But, in the summer scouting, when you do the I call it stage 1 scouting, I have finite projectability, as I call it, and I give some to this guy, some to this guy. I don't want to overdo it. Some I do, because those are the guys I'm very excited about. Yeah, totally. And you could be right, you could be wrong. I mean, I think as a collective, we all kind of were extra excited for John Mateer, and it's looking like
I was just going to use that as an example, because he's a watch at Washington State. We were like, oh my God, I feel like I'm on freaking, I can't even say, I don't want to get us demonetized, but I feel like I'm on extra juice.
I'm on substances.
So to say. I'm on a Bang energy drink. We'll call it that, 300 milligrams of caffeine. And you're just like riveted watching this guy. You almost have to take a minute to catch your breath and be like, all right, but as a quarterback, where does he fit in here? So I totally get that. Which I will say, early and right, I don't want to take too big of a victory lap here. We still got some time, but if you're ready to talk receivers, I did have one take that is starting to look good.
That's a great pivot. Let's pivot to the receivers. Let's talk about some of your favorite receivers. Let's do it.
Wide receiver 1 for me this whole cycle thus far. And I mean, there's a great receiver 2. I love receiver 2. I think he should be going higher in mocks than you're seeing him. But Jordan Tyson, this whole cycle, I've been saying he should be a top 5 to 10 player on people's big boards. And initially, I heard a lot of people saying he's more of a 15 to 20 type of guy. And I just I don't know, man. A guy who can separate like that, has good speed, an assassin over the middle of the field. I get it. There's some drop issues, but he also had the most targets of any of the receivers I did for summer scouting last year.
CeeDee Lamb drops a lot of passes too. We don't really care.
Dak Prescott somewhere shedding a tear. But now I'm starting to see people, and I mean, Jordan Tyson's been awesome to start this year too. So let the young man, have his flowers. He's a big reason why you're starting to see people pivot. But now you're starting to see, okay, yeah, he's a top 5 to 10 player in this class. And especially in a class where we don't really know what's going on at the top. Last year, it was kind of clear cut. We know who the best players in this class are. There's, 3 to 4 that you really want. And then it's kind of a jumbled middle of the first round. And then you get to the back half of the first and second round, and you got some good depth. This year feels like it's kind of wide open at the top. And then the deeper you get, you start to find some guys you like. But it's also so uncertain at this point. We still have a lot of ball to go. But yeah, Jordan Tyson was my guy, preseason top 10 on my big board. And as he currently sits, player number 6. And he may move up because number 2 on that was Arch Manning. So take Arch Manning out of that, and he's my number 5 player on my big board. So I think the guy's a stud. You don't want a helmet scout, but we had Dalton Wasserman from PFF on for a show, and he was not necessarily 1-to-1, but there is so much Brandon Ayuk in his game, and another Arizona State guy, but they're just an elite separator, explosive out of his breaks, and also great body control. you see in the college football playoff and games against Texas last year where Sam Levitt's just throwing it up, trusting his guy, and he has just got great ability to go up, contort his body, make a tough grab along the sideline, and make a big play for his team. So he's a little bit slender built coming into this season, but I think even that, he looks like he's added another 5 pounds of muscle, which doesn't take much. So if he's already added 5, I think at the next level, like we were talking about earlier with running backs, just NFL weight room, NFL diet, NFL regimen, give him another 5 pounds. And then the drops, I think, are just more so volume and concentration. We can fix both those things. So I'm not quite going to put him in the blue chip tier. The last blue chip receiver I had was Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Remo Dunze year. So I didn't have any last year. But Tyson, by the end of the year, he may well be a blue chipper just because the more I watch, it's just like, dude, this is the number 1 wide receiver at the NFL level. So I've been happy to see that, maybe I was right about Jordan Tyson being the top 5, player, top 10 player in this class. And it feels good to have everyone else kind of pivoting in that direction. So it's good to be right and early on that one.
Are you concerned with the hands, though? Not the drops per se, but there's a lot on tape where you see kind of the body catching, not necessarily showing the strong hands. I'll say this, though. It feels like in the 4 games so far this season, it's gotten better.
Yeah.
So there's a development pattern there that I think is very encouraging. But what do you think of his hands overall?
I have no concerns about his hands. He sometimes he can bring it in a little bit too much into his body, but I think, again, you have to talk about a guy who had 100 targets last year. So there's just a lot of volume to look through. So you see a lot of different things when you watch him. But I think for the most part, he's going up and he's plucking it. He works back to the football really well on comeback routes too. That's always something to me is like, not that you can't play on Sundays if you don't, but like that tends to be one of those like easy cheats for me. That's like, is this guy is this guy going to play on Sundays or not? Because that just tends to be something that even if you're not an elite college player, but you're a day 3 guy that goes to the NFL, that tends to be a trait you typically have. So he does do that. I love the separation. And there's just so much like intermediate route running is like almost a lost art. It feels like just because we've gotten into a day and age of like, we want to take deep shots, too high secondaries and too high shells and taking that away. So a lot of offenses are now playing dink and dunk, which is fine. I totally get it's a natural pivot, but like, you see Justin Jefferson and how he wins in that 10 to 20 yard range. And then on a college level, you look at Jordan Tyson and how he does that. And it's hard not to just like, it's like football is such a romantic and poetic sport. When you watch that, you're just like, wow, I just feel like I might be moved to tears watching this. So I just love what he does in that 10 to 20 yard range. And I think he's got a great chemistry with Sam Levitt too. So that's definitely a big advantage. But I think I was curious about Levitt coming into this year. I think this year, the Mississippi State game specifically kind of shows that I think that's a relationship where it goes more one way than the other, maybe. Now, I will say Levitt the last 2 games has been a lot better, but I think Levitt's going to be interesting when it comes to like if he doesn't declare this year, what he looks like next year, because he already feels like a guy who, now that they're not asking him to lean on the run game and use play action and utilize that part and then use Jordan Tyson, what happens next year when he doesn't have Cam Skadaboo in that run game? And he doesn't have Jordan Tyson. So I don't know. Like in a lot of ways, Sam Levitt, best interest might be declared this year and just, take the roll of dice, be the young guy this year and go for it. But anyways, that's a side tangent we could talk about another time. But that just speaks to how highly I think of Jordan Tyson. I think he really is complete package. I think he could play X receiver, especially since he, like I said, he's already added, I think, about 5 pounds worth of muscle this season compared to what he looked like last year. So I think he's headed in the right direction. And all those little nitpicks are very coachable and very correctable.
He's my wide receiver 1 as well. The thing I really, really like about Tyson, the volume proves
100%.
His alpha, right? It proves his alpha. I mean, 3 games so far this year, over 10 targets in 3 of the 4, and the one that he didn't had 8. So, I mean, he's averaging more than 10 targets a game.
Yeah.
But I also love when you look at where he lines up. Last year, he played 42% out of the slot. This year, it's at 31%. Yeah. They can put him in. They can put him out. That versatility is what really shines through. And it's that versatility that, in my opinion, from doing this for some time, is when you can see a guy who might be number 20 on a big board go inside the top 10, go inside the top 12, is because the NFL team sees not only is he good in one spot, but we can use him all over. And versatility and flexibility for this guy is huge.
And maximizing the slot has been something I've been preaching for years now. You can go back to my own YouTube channel. I have something about why the slot corner is going to be, the cornerstone of an NFL defense. I did that 3 or 4 years ago now. So, but like you're seeing that on the defensive side and playmakers like a Brian Branch, Devin Witherspoon, Trent McDuffie. But you're seeing on the offensive side too, right? Like the Cowboys could play CeeDee Lamb exclusively outside if they felt like that's absolutely what we need to do. more often than not, they're comfortable with him just playing the slot. Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit.
They went and got Pickens for a reason because they know he could be used in the Z. He could use inside too.
And there's just so much that Terry McLaurin, another good example in Washington, Cliff Kingsbury, and that was one of the huge areas of concern for him when he was a head coach in Arizona. DeAndre Hopkins played left receiver. You could count on it. 99% of the time he's playing left receiver. And now he's grown and he's made pivots. And now you see Terry McLaurin moved around. Still not as much as I'd like, but you're seeing him moved around. So you're seeing teams come away with this understanding of our best players. Yes, they're best players and they can win on their own. But what happens when I move them in the slot? Instead of a two-way go, it's a three-way go. What happens? I take him off the line of scrimmage and now he's a flanker and gets an extra step against that corner. And all of a sudden, we got a big play on our hands because we changed that alignment and put him in a more advantageous situation. So you're seeing coaches come around to that idea, and Jordan Tyson showcases that flexibility. And his route running, dude, again, like three-way go, like this guy would be a handful to stop out of the slot. But again, he's added muscle mass. I think he can play on the outside and do that if you need to. So I think another good comparison is Matthew Golden from last year. So if we're not going to compare him to Brandon Ayuk, who at the peak of his powers, like Brandon Ayuk's an elite receiver in my eyes. But, someone who's kind of like Matthew Golden, maybe Matthew Golden plus in my eyes. I didn't have Matthew Golden receiver one like, Todd McShay, and I know some other people did. But it's just interesting to see what that unlocks for an offense, like what easy buttons he can have for an offense, and then vice versa. If he goes to the right offense and the right play caller, what easy buttons they can give him and what that does for him as a player too. So it's again, team building is really fun to think about.
Yeah. So, Tyson seems to be the clear favorite for the wide receiver when first got off the board. Probably, I would say, for me anyway, he's the only wide receiver that I have a first round grade on.
I got another one. So
let me hear. That's what I was gonna. So that's why I'm very excited to hear. Give me your number 2 and number 3 on your list because I think it gets interesting after number 1.
Yeah, I got Mekhi Lemon. I'm working on a mock draft, and like I said this earlier, man, this guy should be going a lot higher in mock drafts. Like I'm surprised that I see him going towards late first, if not even in the first round mock. I think in mine, if I hold it steady, he's going to go, I think, in the top 15. He's going to go 12. I'm going 12 to Carolina in that one. And that's using order from Tankathon. Don't yell at me. See that mock, go check it out on 32BeatWriters. We'll get there when we get there. But no, I think Mekhi Lemon's a freak, man. Like he's kind of got that Amon-Ra St. Brown thing working for him where low center of gravity, bouncy dude, 5'11", 190. He's a junior. Really crisp route runner, can find the soft spot in zones at the same time. So you got a guy who can beat both man and zone. I think he's physical at the catch point. Preseason Dane Brugler didn't have him as high as others, including myself. And his kind of sticking point was, I don't think he's great in contested catch situations. Maybe it just comes down to how we're defining that term. But honestly, you go to the Notre Dame game at the end of last season, he's got a couple of really nice concentration, contorting his body, sideline grabs with a defender on him. But there's also catching that game where he's taking a hit and make a nice grab over the middle. So I guess it just comes down to what are we calling contested catch? But honestly, I think he does it well for both. But this guy's going to be a flanker or a slot. So that's kind of where he can't, to me, that's kind of the tiebreaker right now for me and Tyson. Also, I think Tyson's just a little bit better. But if there was a tiebreaker, Tyson could be my X and he could go man-to-man against press, and I'd be comfortable with that. Lemon, I would like to keep as a flanker or as a slot player. But again, I think he's got better body control than some people are giving him credit for. He can work the sideline. He can make those tough grabs there. But this guy working over the middle of the field is going to be automatic against man, zone, great hands, and also very shifty after the catch. So he's just one of these guys where that little 5-yard Wan'Dale Robinson hitch route, that specialty, this guy can make some plays thereafter with it. So I'm a big fan of Mekhi Lemon. I think he's actually getting a little slept on by a lot of the draft community right now. Half the first round, a lot of mocks.
Mekhi Lemon is going to be, I'm calling it now, he is going to be everyone's epiphany, like Matthew Golden was. Yeah, but even more so because the analytics is there. So the analytic community already likes Mekhi Lemon because yards per out run is through the roof, top 10 in the nation. Receiving yards, he's top 5 in the nation. So the surface stats there, the analytics is there. And then when he hits Indy, I think he's going to burn the 40. I think the 40 is going to be an eye popper for some. An
interesting test. Yeah.
And I think at that point when we see the number is when everyone goes, oh, you know what? He isn't that small. If he'd be 5'11", 193, we'll call it, if he wants to work on the speed. He's 195 now, so let's call it 193 come combine. That's going to be good enough. The route running's there. The versatility is there. The explosiveness is there. And then when they see the speed and that, when everyone sees that 40 time, it's like, oh, yeah, he is fast. Or, oh, he's so slow, even though I thought he was fast all year. That's a big eye-opener. So to me, when we're talking in April, TJ, everyone's going to be like, oh, Makai Lemon. Yeah, of course he's a first guy. Yeah, of course he's a first round guy.
I totally agree. And especially if you're a team that already has an X receiver, right? So like in this mock, this upcoming week, I'll go to give it away again. It's Carolina. Carolina's got an X receiver. Ted McMillan looks like a freaking stud right now.
Makai Lemon with
and that team, and I mean, no Jalen Coker right now, but you look at that team and they need a second receiver like I need air. Like it's clear they need another guy who can get consistently open, and Xavier Legette's just not that dude. No disrespect, but he's just not the dude. And I think things will feel better when Coker's there. So that will definitely help. But if you're telling me X is Ted, Z is Lemon, and power slots Jalen Coker, I mean, pump that into my veins, dude. I'm pumped up about that offensive. I'm a Panthers fan, so and it doesn't even necessarily. I'm trying to think of another team with an X right now. If Tennessee wasn't picking so high, and you were like, "Hey, Ridley's going to be our X," they look like they could use another receiver right now. Houston just drafted 2 guys, but if they didn't, that'd be a fun landing spot. So depends on I guess what Denver. I think Troy Franklin's had a nice game a couple weeks ago. Marvin Mims has had moments, but Cortland Sutton's your X, and if you made Makai Lemon your Z, sounds awesome to me. So I think there's a lot of options there, but it's going to come down to the right fit, and maybe that's part of people's hesitation, right? Since he's not going to be an X receiver. Maybe that's why he is slipping a little bit in these mock drafts. So it's also September, so we still have a lot of ball. But so far this year, he has been phenomenal, and it's an air raid offense that Lincoln Riley's calling there. So like, there's going to be some gaudy stats for sure, but he looks the part. And I think an underrated part is his yards after the catch ability. He's not quite as thick as Xavier Restrepo, because like when I saw Restrepo at the Senior Bowl, I was like, dude, bro, like this guy is short. This guy's a literal fire hydrant that plays football. And Lemon's not quite that. He's a little taller and he's not quite as thick, but like he's pretty well built. So I think yards after the catch, like this guy's gonna be a lot to handle in the open field too. And I wouldn't want to, if I'm a linebacker and he got away from me initially, I don't want to be chasing this guy down.
TJ, it's been awesome talking to you. But before we go, make sure you got to let us know what's your number 3. Give us your top 3. Let's round out this top 3.
Yeah, you know what? Let me rapid fire. Sorry, I know I can be so long-winded.
No, I love it. I love the conversation. I love it.
Preseason receiver 3 was Antonio Williams. He's been hurt. And honestly, I think you see Cade Klubnik in the easy button. And I don't think Cade Klubnik's the reason Clemson's 1-3. There's a lot of 2% here, 5% there, 10% of the blame's there. There's a lot of contributing factors there in Clemson. But I think not having Antonio Williams, you feel the easy button kind of gone from that offense. He's very Josh Downs-like. So he was like a high floor. I know what this guy is. He was my preseason receiver 3. But honestly, Denzel Boston, it could be kind of 3A, 3B there. Do you want a slot? Do you want an X receiver? Boston's more of your X. Not as explosive out of his breaks as someone like Drake London or Teteroa McMillan, but I think he's a slippery enough guy after the catch where he's just got good body fluidity. He can be a little tricky to tackle there, and he's 6'4", 210, so he gives you that big body, and he's got a big game this upcoming week, so keep an eye on him. Elijah Surratt from Indiana just had a huge game against Illinois. No Xavier Scott. Wish we could have seen those two go head-to-head, but Indiana rinsed Illinois, and Surratt had that a really nice game overall, but he had the back end zone touchdown from Mendoza over the middle. And then a couple more guys. Eric Singleton Jr. from Auburn, speedster. He kind of makes me think a little bit about Terry McLaurin. His time at Georgia Tech, Haynes King's a fun college quarterback, but he's not necessarily the most accurate. There were some nice contested catch adjustment grabs from Singleton in his time at Georgia Tech. So could there be some Terry McLaurin in his game? That was kind of what I was hoping for preseason. And then just a handful more. Jacoby Lane, the other USC receiver, 6'4", 195, really fluid mover. He did miss this last week with an injury, so TBD on what his status is. Carnell Tate, he's in a lot of ways kind of the Emeka Egbuka. He's bigger. He's 6'3", 190, but not going to have elite long speed, but finds a soft spot in zones, sure-handed, makes the tough grabs, solid blocker. He's WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, and as long as you're not drafting him to year 1, I think you're going to be happy with it. Casey Concepcion just tore up my Notre Dame Fighting Irish a couple weeks ago, unfortunately. But he's been a great player, very shifty, also really good body contortion for someone who is smaller, can go up there and make some tough grabs. Great gadget player as well. And then Deion Burks will be the last one I'll leave you with. I've been really happy to see him get back on track at Oklahoma. Missed a majority of last season, but this year with John Mateer, that's been a nice 1-2 punch. He was a little quieter this last week. It was that other receiver whose name's now escaping me. But up until that point, Burks has been kind of the main guy there, as well as Jaron Kennick, the tight end. So just a quick rapid-fire rundown of I think what would be my next top 10. Unless there's Chris Brazel from Tennessee, speed freak, but I just need to see more of him.
Having a great season too, yeah.
Chris Bell from Louisville. That would be the one. I don't want to admit him. 6'1", 227, probably going to run low to mid 4.4. Really good yards after the catch guy. Really good vertical receiver. just needs to become a more consistent route runner. He's a guy that if he takes that step forward as a route runner, watch out, because like everything else is there from a tool standpoint. So just a little bit of refinement there from Chris Bell. He could be a real freak.
Yeah, baby. And TJ, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on Blue
Dude, of course.
This was awesome. We're going to be collabing some more throughout the process.
I think the plan is to get you on for a mock, man. So I'm excited to run through that because, I mean, again, team building, infinite possibilities. I'd love to open through all those doors with you.
Yes, and we'll definitely have you on for an NFL mock maybe a couple times throughout the process. It's always fun to do mocks with people and get kind of the back and forth and see how it goes. So, TJ, it's awesome. Please let everyone listening know where they can find your work, where they can get all your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow us at 32BeatWriters on X. If you're a fantasy football player, you probably already do follow us on Twitter. But definitely subscribe to us on YouTube. That's been a big initiative for us really starting in the middle of draft season last year when we went out to the Senior Bowl. So been growing that channel, been a big focus of specifically mine for 32BeatWriters. So go give us a subscription. All my draft content lives there. So go check out all my summer scouting videos. Go leave me a comment if you think there's someone I missed. You can also follow me on X, TJ Wengert, spelled Wengert, like it is on the screen. You can shoot me a DM, or I always post the shows there. Feel free to interact with me and give me some questions that you got. I'd love to be able to talk a little bit more ball with you. So that's where you can find me. That's where you can find my work.
I've been very excited for this to have this conversation. Now that we've had it, I'm kind of sad to see it end, but we'll do it again sometime. We'll make sure that we keep in touch and do this again. Make sure you're subscribed to the Player Profiler Now channel. Make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment. Who are some of your favorite running backs and wide receivers in college football? And maybe just next time we have you on, TJ, we'll do some more fun stuff. But it was awesome. Thank you so much again. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. I'm Matty Cuum. Get me on X at Matty Cuum. Until next time, everybody, we'll see you later. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.